So you're probably wondering why the fuck I'm reviewing 2 movies that were released in 2016 when there's a plethora of other contemporary films available for scrutiny. In short, I've discontinued my website because it wasn't really contributing to anything, but each addition to the barely bloody readable section deserves to be immortalised by ways of video, so here we are. I won't be reciting them word for word. I've done some tweaking in the name of improving the literature, and I've also modernised the humour. Seriously, some of the witticisms in the original scrolls were more outdated than a Charlie Sheen joke. I remember approaching my screening of The Forest expecting to watch over 90 minutes worth of reprocessed shit dragged from the anus of a decaying husk belonging to the supernatural horror genre, and that's exactly what I fucking saw. Natalie Dormer plays Sarah Price, as well as her twin sister Jess, the latter of which has gone missing in the Aokigahara Forest, a notoriously popular site for suicide located at the base of Mount Fuji in Japan. Sarah's twin instinct believes her sister is still alive, so she travels over there to find her. However, the haunted forest has ideas of its own. Ooh. Overall, the film is awful, but it has nothing to do with Dormer's performance. She dealt very well with taking on a dual role, but unfortunately the movie never presented her with an opportunity to showcase her range. Supporting actor Taylor Kinney plays Aiden, who is as generic as they fucking come. I honestly can't remember much about him at all, even when I was freshly removed from my viewing way back then, except that for some reason he believes documenting a tourist looking for her sibling in a forest that has a reputation to be filled with missing people will somehow make him famous. The forest is very lazily made. CGI is hideous, and it takes us on a guided tour of horror movies you've seen before. We get a campsite scene that's straight out of the Blair Witch Project, a hole in the middle of the ground that drops us into a set piece belonging to The Descent, and someone has built a replica of the cabin in the woods from Evil Dead. The pacing is fucked as well. Any build-up the first act may have created turned into impatience, which transformed into boredom because it takes the film nearly a third of its 93-minute duration to get our protagonist into the Aokigahara forest, and by then I'd practically lost interest. The final act ends more abruptly than an Essex girl's virginity. It felt like creative suddenly remembered they were renting the equipment by the hour, so they decided to stop filming and pack that shit in to ensure they had enough money left over for entrance fee to a ketamine tasting party. The worst part of it all, minus any chance of realism being taken away by Sarah's phone having an unnatural amount of battery life, is that the forest isn't even slightly frightening. Jump scares are dotted around everywhere, but they all fail to land, and can we please stop ending supernatural horror movies with the ghost or whatever running towards the camera before the film reel cuts to credits? You know I wrote that shit back in 2016, yet this genre still milks that conclusion. Sham fucking bollock. In short, having a talented lead, which Dormer is in a horror movie that looks cheap, is unoriginal, poorly paced, and most shamefully of all not scary, is like sprinkling glitter on a piece of shit. It may sparkle now and then, but no matter how you try to perceive it, a piece of shit is a piece of shit. I was hoping to leave 10 Cloverfield Lane with an excuse to rant about how pointless sequels that are inferior to their predecessors, see the vast majority of sequels in existence for an example, have no intention of being good in any way whatsoever. They're purely made to make money off of the success attached to the original, and the industry should go fuck itself for it. I expected to say that J.J. Abrams has once again created a copy and paste version of a film that ended up being nowhere near as good as what preceded, and then ironically complain about why The Raid 3 was cancelled. Alas, this wasn't meant to be, because it turned out that 10 Cloverfield Lane is actually really fucking good. Michelle, played by Mary Elizabeth Winstead, is packing her bags and leaving her engagement ring behind. Later in the evening, she's driving about and ends up fucking her car off into a ditch. Sometime after the fact, our protagonist is woken up in an underground bunker by her host Howard, portrayed by John Goodman, who tells her she can't leave because there's been an attack. A big one. He also claims that the air outside is unbreathable. Joining them is John Gallagher Jr.'s Emmett, a local contractor who fled to Howard's bunker after he saw a flash like out of the Bible. Michelle isn't really sure she believes either of them, but the only thing between her and the truth is a locked hatch. However, only Howard has the key. Ooh, again. All 3 actors do a fine job, but Goodman steals the show by putting on one of the best performances of his career. Howard is shrouded in mystery and questions. questions. Is he a savior or a captor? Is he genuine or insane? Is Emmett working with him? Either way, you never stop questioning this man's agenda, and Michelle certainly didn't want to ask him because he has a temper that's less controlled than Bonnie Blue's cunt. The bunker itself feels like a character. On the surface, it's well decorated, homely and functional, but behind certain doors and within hidden areas are stones better left unturned. Much like Howard's hospitality, it can be perceived as a welcome refuge or a place of detention, and just like Howard himself, the bunker can alter the safety of its occupants without reason or warning. It's an excellent use of a very small set. I felt like I was in there with them at some points, making Goodman's screen presence all the more potent. Even if Howard is passively standing in Michelle's way, he's very intimidating because they both know that she can't go over, under or around him. The only way to get past is through him. Of course, the answers to all the questions lies beyond the hatch, hence why we are so desperate for our protagonist to open it, which certainly isn't an original plot point, but I was immersed nonetheless. Even though the movie is nearly a decade old at time of talking, I won't spoil the end result, but what I will say is that if this film was 15 minutes shorter, it would have been a positive thing, as the dying embers restricted us from letting our imaginations run wild, but that shouldn't stop you from pressing play. If you haven't seen 10 Cloverfield Lane yet, but now want to, don't go into it expecting to witness a direct sequel to the original installment. It's at best tangentially connected to Cloverfield. However, I still recommend this movie because unlike most fucking sequels, it dared to stray away from the path that its forebear created. For that reason alone, I still praise it almost as much as the thought process my fit Vietnamese neighbour went through before deciding to skip rope on her front drive whilst donning a proper fuck-all amount of winter clothing. So that's 2 down, 3 to go. I won't be releasing video adaptations of my written reviews consecutively. It'll be as and when, because I'm spending a sickening amount of time on other projects like learning Vietnamese and inventing a device capable of disabling nearby panic alarms.